All right, so you guys requested a deep dive into something I think we all kind of experience, at some point, um, those wonderfully noisy neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to be exploring this podcast script called My Neighbor the Noise Machine, which sounds like it might hit close to home for you.
For sure.
We're going to unpack those late night concerts, the mysterious furniture rearrangements at 3:20 a.m., and of course the ever popular canine chorus.
It's funny because, noise complaints are actually one of the most common issues in shared living spaces.
Oh, really?
Whether it's apartments, condos, or even houses that are close together, it just seems like unwanted noise is this universal thread.
Yeah, definitely a common experience.
Yeah, in the tapestry of human existence.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
This script actually dives right into those nightly concerts scenarios,
Uh-huh.
and it talks about music so loud it vibrates the walls. That bass line you can practically feel in your bones,
Oh, yeah.
even if it's coming from next door.
Right.
What is it about those low-frequency sounds that seem to get to us so much?
Well, there's actually a physiological reason for that. Studies have shown that, those deep bass tones, they tend to travel further
Huh.
and they have a more physical impact. It's not just about volume, it's about the way our bodies actually perceive and process those sounds.
Hmm.
There's even some thought that we might have an evolutionary response to low frequency noise,
Oh, really?
like associating it with potential threats or danger.
It's like our inner caveman, freaking out
Exactly.
over a thumping bass line.
Yeah.
I know the script mentions Sarah, a friend of yours, who had a neighbor that blasted the same song for 5 hours straight.
Oh, gosh.
Did you ever find out what song it was?
I never did find out the actual name of the song,
Oh, man, I'm dying to know.
but she did joke about sending an invoice for emotional damage.
I bet.
Which brings up a good point.
Oh, yeah.
Prolonged exposure to unwanted noise. It isn't just annoying, it can genuinely impact our well-being.
Oh, for sure. Noise can really mess with your sleep, your concentration, even your mood.
Yeah.
It's not something to just brush off.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some ways people can cope with noise like that, especially when it's ongoing?
Well, there are a few strategies. Obviously, noise-canceling headphones can be a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Some people find that white noise machines or even just a fan running can help mask those intrusive sounds.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But, there are also deeper techniques like mindfulness exercises.
Oh, really?
Focusing on your breath, for example, can help you regain a sense of calm amidst the chaos.
It's like you're creating your own little bubble of peace, even if the world outside is like a symphony of unwanted sound.
Exactly.
Speaking of unpredictable sounds, the 3 a.m. movers section of this script really got me laughing. That thunk drag sound of furniture being moved in the dead of night. It's like a horror movie waiting to happen.
It's funny you should mention horror movies because there's actually a reason why those sounds can feel so unsettling. Yeah, our homes are supposed to be our sanctuaries.
Right, our safe spaces.
Exactly. And when that sense of security is disrupted, especially at a time when we're most vulnerable, like in the middle of the night, it triggers this primal fear response. It's like our brains are telling us something's not right.
It's not just about being annoyed. It's about feeling safe in your own space.
Exactly.
In the script, it turns out the culprit was actually a toddler, pushing a box around at 3 a.m. I can only imagine how sleep-deprived the parents must have been.
Oh my gosh, I know.
But even knowing it's just a kid, doesn't it still feel a little creepy hearing those sounds at that hour?
Oh, absolutely, it can.
Yeah.
And, that speaks to the psychological impact of noise, which is just as important to acknowledge as the physical effects.
Right.
Even if we know logically there's no danger, our bodies can still react as if there is.
It's like our brains are playing tricks on us, amplifying those sounds and turning them into something sinister.
Exactly.
And sleep deprivation definitely doesn't help.
No, it does.
You mentioned earlier that noise can affect our sleep. But I'm curious, what exactly is happening in our brains when we're trying to sleep and there's all this noise going on?
So when we sleep, our brains go through a series of cycles moving from light sleep to deep sleep and REM sleep. Each stage has a specific purpose in restoring our bodies and minds.
Okay.
Noise, unfortunately, can disrupt those cycles, preventing us from reaching those deeper, more restorative stages of sleep.
So even if you don't fully wake up, that noise is still messing with your sleep quality.
Exactly. And over time, chronic sleep disruption can have a significant impact on our physical and mental health.
Wow.
It can lead to fatigue, irritability, difficulty concentrating, and even increase the risk of more serious health problems down the line.
That's really eye-opening. It makes you realize that noise pollution is much more than just a minor annoyance.
It is.
It's something we need to take seriously.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another common noise complaint, barking dogs.
Oh, yeah. The parking choir. A classic noisy neighbor scenario.
Oh, for sure.
This script describes it as an orchestra of barkers.
Mm-hmm.
With all those different types of barks.
Yeah.
You got the deep woofs, the high-pitched yaps,
Right.
and that insistent mid-range growl that seems to defy all attempts at silencing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious, from a dog's perspective, what is going on when they bark like that?
Well, barking is a dog's primary form of communication.
Sure.
It's how they express, excitement, alert their pack to potential threats, or simply demand attention.
It's like their version of talking,
Right.
but much louder.
Exactly.
Do dogs even understand how loud their barking actually is? Is it purely instinctual, or can they learn to be more mindful of their volume?
That's a good question. It's likely a combination of instinct and learned behavior.
Okay.
Some breeds are naturally more vocal than others
Oh, really?
because of their breeding history and the roles they were bred for.
Mm-hmm.
But, training and socialization play a huge role in managing barking tendencies.
So it really comes down to responsible pet ownership.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This script talks about how ineffective it is when owners just yell quiet at their barking dogs.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost as if the dogs interpret it as joining in the chorus.
Right. It's like they think you're barking, too.
Right.
Exactly. And responsible pet ownership includes addressing excessive barking, not just for the sake of the neighbors, but for the well-being of the dog as well.
Right.
Often excessive barking is a symptom of an underlying issue, like anxiety, boredom, or lack of proper training.
So it's not just about silencing the dog.
Right.
It's about figuring out what's causing the barking in the first place.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. It's interesting. This script takes a bit of a turn here
Oh, does it?
and starts talking about how we can sometimes find humor in these noisy neighbor situations.
Okay.
It even suggests that they can provide us with a strange form of entertainment and a chance to practice our patience.
I like that.
What's fascinating here is this idea of reframing our perspective.
Yeah.
Instead of solely focusing on the annoyance, we can choose to see the humor, the absurdity in these situations. It's not about condoning the noise, but about finding a way to cope with it mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, I think that's a really healthy approach.
It's like finding those little silver linings in the cloud of noise pollution.
Exactly.
The script gives this example of hearing faint strains of Despacito at midnight
Oh, God.
and finding it oddly reassuring because, hey, at least the neighbor has decent taste in music.
At least it's not something worse.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it also speaks to our human need for connection.
Yeah.
Even in the most unconventional ways, sometimes those shared experiences,
Right.
even annoyances, can create a sense of community,
Uh-huh.
a sense of shared reality.
Absolutely.
Right?
We might not know our neighbors personally,
Right.
but we know their taste in music.
We know their dog's barking schedule.
Exactly. And their apparent love for rearranging furniture at 3 low a.m.
It creates a weird sort of bond, doesn't it?
It really does. And that brings us to an important point. Recognizing that we all play a role in this ecosystem of sounds. One day, we might be the noise machine for someone else.
Well, that is a great point. It's a
Right.
good reminder to be mindful of our own noise habits
For sure.
and how they might be impacting those around us.
Yeah.
What are some things people can do to be more mindful neighbors besides maybe investing in some noise-canceling headphones for themselves
Right.
and everyone around them?
Well, first and foremost, being aware of common courtesy hours, keep the volume down, especially during late night and early morning hours.
Right, of course.
If you're having a party or doing any renovations, give your neighbors a heads up.
Yeah, that's always a good idea.
And of course, if you have pets, be proactive about training and addressing any excessive barking.
So those are all great practical tips. But what about the mental and emotional side of things? How can we manage those feelings of frustration and annoyance when we are on the receiving end of all that noise?
Well, that's where those coping mechanisms we talked about earlier come in. Noise-canceling headphones, white noise machines, mindfulness techniques, they can all help you create a sense of peace and control within your own space. And remember, communication is key. If the noise is excessive or happening at unreasonable hours, don't be afraid to have a respectful conversation with your neighbor.
That's a good point. Sometimes a simple conversation can resolve the issue without it escalating into a full-blown neighbor war.
Absolutely. And if talking directly doesn't work, there are other options like contacting your landlord or building management. There are resources available to help mediate these situations and ensure everyone's rights are respected. But starting with open communication is always a good first step.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of noisy neighbors, what are some key takeaways you hope our listener will walk away with?
Well, first and foremost, remember that you're not alone in this experience. Noisy neighbors are a common source of frustration, and it's perfectly valid to feel annoyed or even angry when your peace and quiet is disrupted. But there are ways to cope both practically and emotionally.
And it's important to remember that we all played a role in creating a harmonious living environment. A little bit of empathy and consideration can go a long way.
Exactly. We're all part of a complex ecosystem of sounds, and while some of those sounds might be less than desirable, they're also a reminder that we're part of a larger community, each with our own rhythms, routines, and yes, perhaps even a few off-key notes.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
So as you head back out into the world, dear listener, remember to keep the humor, keep the empathy, and maybe just turn down the volume a notch or two, especially after midnight.
And if those late-night furniture rearrangements start to get to, you just remember it might just be a toddler on a mission to conquer the world, one cardboard box at a time.
Happy listening. Yeah, it really is all about finding that balance, isn't it? Our own need for peace and quiet, but also being respectful of those around us.
Absolutely. And sometimes that means, finding creative solutions.
Yeah.
Whether it's those noise-canceling headphones or simply having an open and honest conversation with your neighbor.
Right.
It's not always easy, but it's definitely worth the effort.
Good. This whole conversation has really got me thinking about my own noise habits.
Uh-huh.
I'm definitely going to be more mindful of the volume on my TV at night.
Yeah, good idea.
For our listener out there, what's one thing they can do today to maybe improve their relationship with their neighbors,
Oh, that's a good question.
noisy or otherwise?
It could be something as simple as, a friendly greeting when you see them in the hallway, or maybe offering to help carry groceries if they have their hands full. It's those little acts of kindness that can really go a long way.
I love that it's like turning down the volume on those negative assumptions we tend to make about noisy neighbors
Yeah,
and replacing it with a little bit of human connection.
exactly. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to navigate this noisy world together.
Well said. This has been such an insightful deep dive into the world of noisy neighbors.
It has.
Thanks to this podcast script, My Neighbor, the Noise Machine.
Yeah.
We've uncovered some fascinating insights into the psychology of noise, the importance of sleep, and the power of humor and empathy in navigating those shared spaces we call home.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
I've had a lot of fun,
Me too.
and hopefully our listener has gained some valuable knowledge.
Yeah, I hope so.
A few practical tips, and perhaps even a newfound appreciation for the symphony of sounds that make up our daily lives.
That's a great way to put it.
So until next time, dear listener, remember to keep the humor, keep the empathy, and maybe just turn down the volume a notch or two, especially after midnight.
And those late-night furniture rearrangements,
Oh, yeah.
if they start to get to you, just remember it might just be a toddler on a mission to conquer the world, one cardboard box at a time.
Happy listening.